The courtroom air was thick with the sterile silence that precedes judgment. But the real verdict was about to be rendered outside the law. Arthur Finch, a 68-year-old retired fire captain, stood respectfully, his worn tweed jacket pinned with a single polished medal. He was there for a minor zoning dispute, a disagreement over a fence line with a new property developer. He never expected his presence alone to be an act of defiance. Judge Wallace Thorne, a man whose reputation for rigid authority was as severe as his black robes, paused the proceedings. His eyes weren't on the legal file, but on the small, gleaming decoration on Arthur's chest. "Sir," the judge's voice cut through the quiet, "before we continue, you will remove that ornament." The room's low hum ceased. Arthur's hand instinctively brushed against the medal, a firefighter's Medal of Valor he'd received 30 years ago for pulling 3 children from a burning building, an act that had left him with permanent scars and a lifetime of quiet pride. He looked at the judge, his expression calm. "Your Honor, is there a rule I'm not aware of?" Judge Thorne's lips thinned into a line of impatience. "My rule, Mr. Finch. This is a hall of justice, not a VFW hall. It's an inappropriate display that could be seen as an attempt to curry favor. Remove it now, or you will be held in contempt." Arthur's voice, when he spoke, was low, but carried the weight of conviction. "With all due respect, sir, this medal represents a promise I made to serve my community. I won't dishonor that promise by hiding it." A gavel slammed down, the sound cracking like a gunshot in the tense room. "Contempt," Thorne declared, his face flushing with anger. What he didn't see was the smartphone in the back row, its lens capturing the quiet dignity of one man and the loud arrogance of another. That quiet stand was never meant for an audience. Arthur Finch was a man who lived his life away from the spotlight, his heroism confined to the memories of those he'd saved and the colleagues who respected him. The medal wasn't a boast, it was a memorial. It was for the rookie who didn't make it out of that same fire, a silent tribute he carried every day. To him, wearing it in a place of law was a gesture of faith in the very systems he'd spent his life upholding. He expected that same respect in return. But the world changed that afternoon. The short video clip, less than 90 seconds long, was uploaded with a simple caption. "Local hero told his valor is inappropriate in a courtroom." Within hours, it ignited a firestorm Judge Thorne could never have anticipated. The video was shared first by local community groups, then by firefighter and first responder forums across the country. The hashtags #Stand with Finch and #Honor is not a contempt began trending. The comments were a tidal wave of support, not just for Arthur, but for the principle he represented. It was the quiet integrity against the loud abuse of power. While the digital world erupted, Arthur was at home, tending to his small garden, his phone buzzing incessantly on the kitchen counter. He didn't answer. He hadn't sought this battle, but now that it had found him, he wouldn't retreat. His silence was his most powerful statement, amplifying the injustice and allowing the story to become something bigger than himself. It was no longer about one man and one medal. It was about every person who had ever been dismissed by someone in a position of authority who mistook quiet service for weakness. The story soon leaped from social media to national news networks. The image of the calm, older firefighter standing his ground against a scowling judge became a symbol. News vans began to park down the street from the courthouse, where silent, off-duty firefighters stood in solidarity, their uniforms immaculate, their faces stoic. They held no signs, they chanted no slogans, their presence was enough. Investigative journalists, spurred by the public outcry, began to dig into Judge Thorne's judicial history. A disturbing pattern quickly surfaced. Court transcripts revealed a history of dismissive remarks towards veterans, nurses, and other service-oriented professionals. Long-buried complaints of bias, once dismissed as anecdotal, were now evidence in a growing case against him. The State Commission on Judicial Conduct, buried under thousands of emails and formal complaints, was forced to announce an emergency review of Thorne's conduct. Cornered and exposed, Judge Thorne issued a public statement, but it contained no apology. Instead, he doubled down, decrying the trial by social media and defending his courtroom decorum. This act of pure arrogance was the final nail in his career's coffin. He fundamentally misunderstood the situation. The public wasn't angry about a breach of decorum. They were outraged by a breach of decency. His refusal to acknowledge Arthur's dignity sealed his fate, proving to everyone that his initial demand was born not of principle, but of prejudice. The system he once commanded was now closing in on him, propelled by the quiet courage of a man he had tried to humiliate. The Judicial Commission's hearing was swift and decisive. It wasn't just Arthur's story they heard. Other citizens, emboldened by his stand, came forward. A combat medic recalled how Thorne had scoffed at his testimony in a disability case. A teacher described being belittled for wearing a small pin honoring her students. The accumulated evidence painted a clear picture of a man unfit for the bench. Within a week, Judge Wallace Thorne was indefinitely suspended, and he opted for a quiet, forced retirement rather than face the public humiliation of a formal removal. His long career ended not with honor, but in disgrace. Arthur Finch never celebrated the judge's downfall. He sought respect, not revenge. Weeks later, he was invited to the state capitol. In a ceremony attended by first responders from across the state, the governor presented him with a special civic citation, not for the fire he fought decades ago, but for the quiet battle he won in that courtroom. The incident prompted real change. The state legislature passed a new bill, informally known as the Finch Act, protecting the right of citizens to wear medals of valor and service in public buildings. It also mandated new de-escalation and bias training for the judiciary. Arthur's story became a powerful reminder that courage is not always loud. Sometimes it is the simple, unwavering refusal to be diminished. It proved that a person's worth is not determined by a robe or a gavel, but by the integrity they carry within them. And in a world of noise, one man's quiet dignity had spoken louder than any shouted command.